What do you think we should do about stuff? I'm going to
Oh,
use you as a
Merbella's the
mentor.
one who did the fighting with Duncan.
Are
How
you
did I...
serious?
I thought that person died, honestly. Words about
That's right.
For the last time, Ben.
Probably, yeah.
I can't imagine, unless Frank Herbert comes back from the dead, all right?
Well, there's probably another movie.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll probably talk about that.
But the last time, we do it about a book.
They might do the Bene Gesserit TV show. I might talk about that.
Why? Why bother?
I don't know. I'm very interested in that one because I like the Bene Gesserit, but I'm wondering how much of good old Brian's influence there is in that one.
Probably a shitload.
I don't know.
He can't help himself.
I don't know. I don't think he had a ton of influence on the movie. I'll put it that way. I think. Well, we'll talk about that. So, okay, I'm Ben. You're Nate. We're talking about Chapterhouse Dune, the final, as far as I'm concerned, canon book and the Dune Chronicles. This is the last book authored by Frank Herbert, and it is probably the last book we are going to cover.
I can't imagine. Look, I already did House Atreides. I couldn't even finish it.
I did Hunters of Dune, and I did finish it, and it was fucking terrible.
I was originally thinking I might do Sandworms of Dune until you made me read House Atreides, and I was like, there's no way I can get through that book by those authors.
No, yeah, I mean, it... let me walk you through this as a refresher. I don't know. There's probably people who have not listened to our other episodes about Dune checking out this one.
What a weird place to come in.
It would be a weird place to start. So I'm going to tell you
final book.
A couple of things. There are 6 books in the Dune Chronicles. This is the 6th. So if you're a new fan who just watched the movies, or if you just read the first book, this is not where you want to start. Go all the way back to Dune. Our recording quality was terrible. We didn't know how to edit. It's a mess.
It's a 4-parter. The only 4-parter we've ever done.
You can listen to somebody else's summaries. There's a guy on YouTube.
Nope, you have to listen to ours.
In all seriousness,
you have to walk this path with us.
In all seriousness, I will recommend a guy on YouTube, Quinn's Ideas. He does a really good job of digging into it. He's very knowledgeable about it.
But does he talk about the chapter where Paul loses his pack in the dunes and then he has to pull out his compass and open up all the fluid to use that to stabilize the stand dunes long enough for him to dig his pack up? I don't think he brings that up. I haven't watched his video, but I'm guessing he skipped over it just like the miniseries and the 2 movies skipped over it for some reason, Ben.
I don't think he spent a lot of time on it. No, I'm sure he didn't. But
it's an important chapter.
So yeah, you're coming in at the tail end, not even the middle. So if you want to go back and check that out, you can. If you're with it for the long haul, this is probably not going to be our most downloaded episode. So this is I'm going to designate this is a super fan episode. And there might be 3 of them. So this is going to be like super fan month on Words About Books. We're tanking our ratings. The good pods is going to be a shit show on this one.
We'll probably move down to what, number 2?
the good pods rankings may be slightly inflated, but yeah. You know, I think I posted that we came in ahead of Seth Meyers one day on Good Pods, and I was like,
yeah,
shit.
That's right.
I would be so embarrassed if I were Seth Meyers.
You're bad, and you should feel bad. You're losing to this.
You're bad at podcasting, or Good Pods' stats may be fundamentally flawed. So
what?
Heretics of Dune, or no, Heretics of Dune was the last one. Chapterhouse Dune.
So you have to also say, why are we doing a second Dune book in this year, Ben? Normally we do
Because
one a year.
I wanted to be done with it.
Okay.
So it's really tough for all those reasons I just listed above. Like, it's not going to be the world's most downloaded episode. It's not. I don't want to plan a whole month around it. I'm kind of releasing this around the week this goes out. Lord of the Rings comes back. So
strategic.
Yeah. If you want to peek behind the curtain, I'm kind of dampening the damage of this one. If you don't know, for podcasts, monthly stats matter. So yeah, I kind of didn't want to plan a whole month around this one. I've kind of lost my excitement as we got towards the end. I will say, when we did Heretics, I sort of started to see the cracks a little bit. My reread of Heretics, I didn't like it as much as I liked it the first time, mostly because of the real hyper fixation on the weird sex stuff.
Yeah.
Chapterhouse,
like that one guy who kept making fun of Brock Lesnar's daughter.
I mean, we can make fun of Brendan Schaub. I know he doesn't read books.
I forgot his name. You're doing him a great honor by remembering his name.
I know more about him than you do.
That's fair. I mean, he was at my college apparently as a football player, and
he ran several yards before tripping over his own feet.
It's an amazing record.
And falling to the ground, yeah. But yeah, the weird sex stuff in Heretics sort of bothered me. I'm happy to say in Chapterhouse, I'm kind of getting back in. My reread of
there was
Chapterhouse
significantly
went much
less
better.
Weird sex stuff. I think it's all concentrated in one area instead of sprinkled throughout.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know. I'd still say there's some stuff sprinkled throughout, but I think Frank's he made his point.
Yeah.
And he's moved on, which is refreshing for an author. And Chapterhouse, I'm back in. It's more of the politics. It's more of the weird stuff about the nature of humanity and where do we go and how do we survive in the long term. What is our species, basically? That's the stuff I'm here for. That's Dune to me. And that's back in Chapterhouse. But where I was losing steam and why I wanted to just go ahead and get this over with was there's not going to be a real satisfying conclusion to this one.
Yeah.
So in lieu of doing it about the author, I will reiterate a little bit of the publishing history of Dune that we've talked about previously.
When you're done, I will talk about the foreword from Brian Herbert, as has become tradition.
Okay. So, publishing history. Frank Herbert, he wrote God Emperor of Dune, and I think while he was writing God Emperor of Dune, his wife was sick. I could be wrong about that, but not long after she died, he wrote Heretics of Dune. It was his first book without her. She was his beta reader, first draft editor, and you can really tell there's some differences. Number one, the weird sex stuff. I think some of that would have gotten reined in. But like I said, he doesn't go crazy. I think by Chapterhouse, he's back on the plot. And he wrote Chapterhouse, and Chapterhouse is obviously meant to be part 2 of a trilogy that started with Heretics of Dune, with God Emperor acting as a bridge between the first 3 Dune books and the last 3 Dune books. That sequel to Chapterhouse never got written. Frank Herbert died unexpectedly, and that basically is it. But 10 years later,
that was it. Oh.
10 years later, Brian Herbert and his co-author Kevin J. Anderson decided that they wanted to go forward with the project of finishing Dune.
But first,
But first,
they had to finish.
But first, they thought they had to write a prequel trilogy to the original Dune book, like the original Dune. They had to write a prequel trilogy to that, and that is, in whatever order: House Atreides, House Harkonnen, House Carino.
Yeah.
There are plot elements.
Wait, those were the 3 books?
Yes.
I thought they wrote the book specifically so, spoiler alert, they could tie the machines from. Wow. Okay.
So they wrote those 3 books, and for whatever reason, they decided they need to do that. I'm kind of unclear on their reasoning for why they needed to write a prequel trilogy.
My guess is they were like, let's just dip our toes in the water, and if everyone hates us and there's a massive backlash and these aren't popular, we just don't write the last one.
Okay, well, everyone hated it and there was a massive backlash and they weren't super popular.
Oh.
At least shit. Relative to the original Dune.
Well, did they make enough money that they could justify moving forward?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. My family, my father's legacy, and my dignity have a price, sir. 6 figures, and that's it. That's all you need to do. Clear that threshold, and we're in business, baby.
Now, prior to Frank Herbert's death, he was probably developing a prequel book with his son Brian. I do believe that was happening. That is something Brian Herbert has talked about. He said he and his dad were planning on writing that book together. Brian Herbert was also a writer, and Frank was sort of trying to help him get established and get a leg up in the industry.
Hi, I'm Walt Romney. And if that name sounds familiar, it's probably because you know my dad, world-famous, best-selling mystery novelist, Harlan Thrombey. My dad built Blood Like Wine Publishing from the sweat on his brow, and also by putting word after word onto his trusted and treasured Old Smith Corona. So, it is my privilege to announce that Dad has named me acting CEO of Blood Like Wine Publishing.
I don't blame him for that, even though you think Frank Herbert would have those. His books seem to indicate that maybe nepotism isn't like the best thing in the world, but
yeah.
When it came to at least one of his sons, he didn't seem to care.
Ouch.
And yeah, ouch. Well, he was he wasn't perfect. It wasn't crazy that a prequel would be the first thing Brian Herbert attempted. Presumably he'd had conversations with his dad about that, and maybe he felt more ownership of that, and he felt more comfortable doing that.
He was
I understand.
Dad, do you want an entire chapter where Leto the First and his friend that we'll never see again from Ix, they go hunting for, like that episode from Dragon Ball Z where Krillin goes for the pearl with Gohan as the total filler episode no one remembers or cares? And it has the same conclusion too. He tries to get with a woman who he doesn't end up with, and then we just move on. It didn't ever happen. That was that chapter.
That was that book.
And Frank was like, yes, do that. Also, I'm dying. Blah.
So, yeah, and also, if I should die, I want you to write it with Kevin J. Anderson, no one's favorite author.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. Then, after they wrote their trilogy, they were finally mentally and emotionally prepared to tackle Dune Part 7.
Yeah.
And
we found out we were just so great at writing, we couldn't contain all this awesomeness in one book. So we needed 2 books.
Yeah. So Dune Part 7 was split into Hunters of Dune and Sandworms of Dune. And that is what Brian Herbert considers to be the canon end of the Dune Chronicles.
Yeah, that's a thing for sure. Someone considers that canon.
Brian Herbert, I believe, owns the copyright. He's the one whose blessing you have to get if you want to make a Dune movie. So you're probably never going to hear anybody really go after Brian Herbert's Dune books in this age of billion-dollar Dune movies. But I don't make any money, relatively. And I'm not afraid. So I will say that the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson conclusion to the Dune Chronicles is terrible in ways I could not anticipate. Look, I've read Kevin J. Anderson's stuff before. He did some Star Wars stuff. So
I heard that was pretty mediocre as well.
Yeah, but it was mediocre. That was the thing.
Yeah.
It was mediocre. And that was my impression. Like, I don't particularly like Kevin J. Anderson or R.A. Salvatore or all these guys who are always writing whatever franchise book is out there. They write all the Star Trek books, all the Dungeons and Dragons books, all the, Star Wars crap. But I read a couple of them, and Kevin J. Anderson is okay. It's a book.
He's the guy you get if you're like, I need this book, and I also need it in 4 months. It's got to ship. And you're like, get me Kevin J. Anderson. Kevin, can you do it? He's like, I'll have it done in 2.5.
Yeah. No, Kevin, I mean, he's a professional. He's a writer for hire. He gets things in on time. That's probably his greatest skill. And for whatever reason, that's who Brian Herbert thought he needed. Probably because Kevin didn't have a lot of opinions about Brian's terrible ideas. And that's where we are. So I went into Hunters of Dune thinking it was going to be on par with a middling Star Wars book. But hey, the one thing they've got going for them is that Frank Herbert left them a pile of notes on several floppy disks in a safe deposit box, I think.
What? I thought it was in his attic.
I think it was in a safe deposit box. Now, there's a bit of a thing in the Dune community. And I've referenced this on other Dune episodes, but I'm going to refresh everybody's memory. Bear with me if you're listening to all these in a row. You can skip ahead. There's a conspiracy theory in the Dune community that Brian Herbert did not actually find a pile of Frank Herbert's notes. And that he just made that up and wrote whatever the hell he wanted. I don't believe that. I personally believe there's a good amount of evidence, circumstantial though it may be, that Frank Herbert probably was significantly progressed in terms of developing the novel, and it's reasonable to assume he did take notes. When he died, he was planning on going on a trip. It's not crazy to think that he would have stored some of his more important materials in a safe deposit box, and that maybe it was a last minute thing, and that maybe it wasn't necessarily found right after his death. So like the whole story of it being found 10 years later, I think it's plausible. I think he probably did find notes. What those notes contain, we will likely never know. My own private conspiracy theory is that the notes existed and they either were very sparse or they were ignored.
Yet Brian did not understand them and was like, we need to bring back a machine war. It needs to end in all the heroes teaming up and saving the day.
Or it's possible that the conclusion of Dune rendered his prequel ideas totally irrelevant. And he decided he didn't want to do that.
That's a good point. There has never been a canonical Brian Herbert book past Sandworms of Dune. It just ends there.
Correct. He continues to work in the prequel or in between the established Dune books.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people would compare this to what Christopher Tolkien did with the Silmarillion. J.R.R. Tolkien died.
Nah. Brian needs to publish those notes if that's how he wants to be compared.
That's what I was going to say. So that is my reply to those
Show your
people,
work, Brian.
is that I'm gonna point out a few differences just because we are doing a Tolkien podcast now, and that's a big difference between the last time we talked about Dune. Is Christopher Tolkien did create significant material for the Silmarillion. He also cemented ideas that were very much still in flux for Tolkien when he died. And so there is a reasonable criticism of the Silmarillion that it is not canon. It is not what Tolkien would have published had he lived. And I think that's almost certainly true. And I think Christopher Tolkien would almost certainly have agreed with that. And he did the best he could. And in response to that criticism, he compiled all of his father's notebooks that were legible and relevant, and he published them as the History of Middle-earth. He gives notes, he gives multiple versions of each story. As his dad continued to iterate on them, we have like the initial idea of the Valar, the children of the Valar. We've got, I don't know how many versions of the Valaquensa are in there. Many of them contradict. Many of them you can see how the language is developing. He even adds in like what his dad wrote in parentheses as he was changing names and changing who was related to who. So I guess my thing is, if you want Brian Herbert to be afforded the same courtesy I afford Christopher Tolkien when I talk about his contribution to his father's material, show me the notes. Please publish the floppy disk. Annotate it. Write a whole book. I'll buy it. I'll buy two.
Me too. We'll talk about it extensively on the podcast.
I would be happy to hear your commentary on the notes, as long as the notes are there in their entirety. You can clean them up for like spelling and stuff like that, clean it up to publish, but yeah, give me the notes and I will not say a word about you making stuff up. Unless, of course, the notes are significantly different from what you made up. And unlike Christopher Tolkien, you're not just taking your best guess at what your dad would have written. You're sort of inserting your own ideas into the universe. In that case, I would say maybe you're trying to borrow some of the legitimacy and name recognition of the original Frank Herbert Dune to sell books that you could not otherwise get published. Hey, and it's mean. It's a mean thing to say. We talked about Hellhole on the Patreon.
Yeah.
So I went in thinking that this would be a middling Star Wars book, the Hunters of Dune. And I thought, well, at least it'll have the outline. It didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense as a sequel to Dune. I have heard people say that, oh, just take it for what it is. It's good for what it is. It's not what Frank Herbert would have written, but it's, they can't match his style. Or
there's someone who has read House Atreides, it's bad all on its own.
And it's not Dune. I'm sorry. I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt. I really didn't want to be as harsh about it as I'm going to be, but I'm going to say I have a hard time not seeing those books as a cynical cash grab, because when I tell you they are so bad and so different from what is written in Chapterhouse Dune, and that oftentimes in direct contradiction to what is written in Chapterhouse Dune, that it's either a cynical cash grab or pure incompetence. I mean, you take your pick. It's either evil or it's dumb. But it's in no universe is it an acceptable conclusion to the Dune franchise. And this is I know there are people that have a very different opinion from me on this, and I know my opinion is kind of mean, but it is my honest opinion. I truly think Chapterhouse is where Dune ends, and Brian Herbert should be ignored. And that
Yeah.
is the final reason I want to be done with this. Because that, when I first read Chapterhouse Dune, obviously I had not read Hunters of Dune. Obviously I didn't know, I knew we didn't get an end, but I thought, maybe it'll be like a Silmarillion kind of thing. Maybe, the Silmarillion doesn't read like Lord of the Rings, but it's pretty good. It's pretty plausible. It's something interesting to think about. I thought, maybe I'll get that out of Hunters of Dune. It might be weird or boring or poorly written, but at least it'll be something to think about. It'll just tell me what happened with the Honored Matres and the Bene Gesserit. No, it's just it directly contradicts Chapterhouse so much that the only way I think you can really defend it as being an acceptable conclusion to the Dune Chronicles is if you did not pay attention or you did not understand the Dune Chronicles. Or you literally had not read the Dune Chronicles for like the 10-year gap or 20-year gap. I don't know how long it was where between Chapterhouse and Hunters of Dune. It's there. I'm sorry. It's just not acceptable. You want to read it, go nuts. But you can probably tell from my tone, like, I don't think it's of any value to anyone for us to continue going with the Brian Herbert books. My opinion is too low. It would just be mean.
Well, with that, let's talk about his little intro. In previous intros, he talked about how Frank Herbert invented modern shipping containers. Talked about how his father courageously bought a palatial estate on the shores of Hawaii for
Not
his
every man
sick
would
wife.
do that for his wife.
But he also heroically kept his house in New England that he could return to with her should the need arise. What a hero, right?
Yeah.
This time, he mostly just talks about how the series just kind of ended, and for a long time, he considered the dedication to his mother from his father at the end of Chapterhouse to be a fitting end for the series. And all I thought reading that was maybe it should have been.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like I somebody asked me once, I don't know why this idea was floating around. Again, I feel like it's people who just fundamentally do not understand the things they are reading. Somebody asked me once if I thought Brandon Sanderson should finish A Song of Ice and Fire if George R. R. Martin died. And I thought I could not think of a worse writer to finish A Song of Ice and Fire than Brandon Sanderson. And that isn't even necessarily a shot at Brandon Sanderson, because I think Brandon Sanderson was asked the same question and also said he would be the wrong fit for A Song of Ice and Fire because it's not what he writes. It's just these people who like think genre is way more than it is.
But he finished The Wheel of Time. Is that what it was? The Wheel of Time?
But I think him and Robert Jordan are more on the same weird wavelength.
Yeah, but
I can't imagine a devout Mormon finishing A Song of Ice and Fire.
Then God came out and struck down the Night King.
Yeah.
And gave us all Jesus. I don't know why that's so crazy.
American Jesus and the angel Moroni came.
Well, I guess Jesus starts out in Essos, but then he comes to Westeros.
I'm not here to make fun of Brandon Sanderson. That will come later.
That will come later. I still have to read one of his books.
He's a nice guy. I don't particularly care for his books, but terrible fit. And again, it's just one of those suggestions where it's like, I know literature is subjective. I know our preferences are subjective. I think it is totally fine to like the Brian Herbert Dune books. But what I think is objective is that their conclusion contradicts Chapterhouse. And it is clearly, objectively, not the conclusion to the story that Frank Herbert was intending.
I will go a step further to say, if you liked those books, I want you to tell me why, because you're wrong. I'm going to say it. You're wrong. They're bad. After having read House Atreides and trying to grade it on its own merits, like, how many chapters do you need to read about Shaddam the Fourth plotting to kill his dad and being upset that it's taking so long, and they're plotting and they're plotting and they're plotting.
Well,
and they're
now,
plotting.
Did you feel his frustration at how long it was taking?
Oh, there you go. There's the angle.
Mm.
Yeah, and how many plot points do we need to bring up that won't ever go anywhere, because we know they don't go anywhere? We know that the Bene Tlaxu are not going to create spice from an axolotl tank anytime in the near future.
No, not for thousands of years.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
You might as well foreshadow electricity in the time of Christ. That would actually be more relevant.
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to use the example of a car, but yeah, same thing. Like, it would be. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter. Nothing can go anywhere because we know they don't go anywhere. All right, so with that out of the way, Chapterhouse.
Chapterhouse. Do you remember where we left off in Heretics? Do you remember
No,
where everybody is?
It was funny because, so normally I do a little recap, and maybe I'll do that for this episode, but I was thinking,
a lot of editing to do this weekend.
I might, yeah, that's the thing. We recorded this really late in the week. I think, kind of give the audience a feel for how I felt reading this book. I'm going to put that recap in part 2 because I did not remember shit when I started reading this book, and it took a really long time. And I read Heretics in March.
Do you remember the characters? Do you remember the main players?
Lucilla, who isn't here anymore, I had to look up her name. She was the imprinter.
She's around for a little bit.
She was going to imprint Duncan Idaho.
The Duncan Gola, yes.
And she doesn't get the opportunity to do that. I don't remember why. Oh, yeah, he reawakens his Gola memories while sex fighting an Honored Matre, and then he becomes a super Gola who remembers all of his Gola lifetimes.
Yes.
Then you had Teg. Bashar Teg. Miles Teg. He was like the commander of the military, the Bene Gesserit. And he, under torture, I think they were maybe slapping his balls or something, like in Casino Royale.
You think this is the first time I've been tortured? This is amateur hour. I've been hitting the bottom of my chair with a rope for an hour. You have to cut the bottom of the chair out for that to work.
And under torture, under traumatic scrotal torture,
I think it was more of like a mind probe. I think it was a T probe.
Oh, yeah. That we decided stood for torture.
A torture probe, yeah. That's probably what Frank... It's one of those things you write in as like a placeholder and then you forgot to take out.
So...
It's just like a D-wolf. It's a danger wolf.
Danger wolf. Oh, so Teg was tortured, and during his torture, he awakened his super mentat powers, or something like that. It's never explained what that was, but...
No, we're not sure what that is, and I believe that's one of the mysteries that probably would have been fully explored in the final book.
But it's probably ignored completely, I'm guessing, by Brian?
It's not ignored completely. full disclosure, I haven't read Sandworms of Dune. Maybe he resolves it. I read Hunters and I was like, this is bullshit. I'm done.
So he moves so fast that other people appear like they're moving slow, and he's super strong, and he just goes on a killing spree of Honored Matres.
Yes, and of course the Honored Matres are
they're the Bene
sex
Gesserit
ninjas with extraordinary kicking abilities. They kill with
their
their feet.
eyes are orange instead of blue and blue because they didn't have access to the spice out in the rest of the universe in the scattering.
I won't lie, that was kind of like the orange eyes versus the blue eyes. It was very like anime, very comic booky.
It is how like Vader has a red lightsaber.
Yeah,
so he's a bad guy.
Yeah. Not one of Frank's like more interesting choices, but yeah, we'll give it to him.
Yeah, whatever. So the Honored Matres in that book, they were trying to muscle in on everyone else's territory by using sexual domination of men, and they also got killed constantly.
Killionaire.
Just constantly being outmaneuvered and murdered. I don't remember the Bene Tlaxu guy because he's dead now, but he had a little dart gun. He had a little dart gun, and he fires a dart and it gets her.
Yeah, dart gun.
And then there are the face dancers. They've been upgraded so that it's harder for you to detect them, and they can copy memories. And the Bene Tlaxu in that book were like, we have been playing the long game. For thousands of years, we have been pooping our pants to make it seem like we are complete and total incompetent losers. But now, Bene Tlaxu are going to be on top. And then they're all dead in this book. They are all wiped out except for one. Whoops. Yeah. Maybe they should have come up with a better plan.
And maybe Frank forgot Saital was a face dancer. We're not sure about that.
Yeah, that's a little interesting because face dancers are described as like slaves to the Bene Tlaxu.
Yeah.
But Saital was definitely acting like a person who just happened to be able to change his face and stuff. Yeah. And I didn't get I didn't think he was a dwarf in the second book.
In Messiah, no, he was not. No. He was a face dancer. He took many shapes.
Yeah, in fact, there was a dwarf in that book, but that was not Saital.
Oh god, yeah,
that was a different guy.
Yeah, you sure did mention that a lot.
Duncan kicks his ass.
You really need the best. The best warrior the Atreides have to offer, the warrior Mentat, Duncan Idaho. Oh, okay. Yeah. Frank's not perfect. He's not perfect, okay? I got my problems with Brian, but Frank messes up too, you know?
There's Shiana.
Shiana, yep. Or Shiana.
Yeah, I think she was a little girl back in that one.
Yeah, she sure was.
Passed.
Yeah, she made a big change. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was a little girl whose family got eaten by worms on Arrakis, or as we call it now, Rakis. And she's like, come get me, worms.
We'll call it Kiss.
No, we'll call it Hellhole because it got burned. Oh, wait, no, can't.
Hellhole was way too livable.
It was very, very livable. It was very.
Hellhole was like better than some parts of Earth.
Yeah, it was super easy to mitigate all the disasters of Hellhole.
Hellhole was literally more habitable than Las Vegas.
Oh my god. I think you're right, yeah.
It rained.
Yeah, and there were storms that came up occasionally, and you just use your instant harvester to harvest all your stuff and store it away. It was super easy. So
Hellhole is a book by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson that is it's not like Dune.
Not at all.
Nope.
So then you had Odrade, and she went down to Dune, and basically schooled the cult of Muad'Dib, or cult of the worm, or something like that, and insulted them and made them look pathetic at every turn. It was really
I think it's like
funny.
the cult, the divided god or something. They're Leto worshippers.
Yeah, she basically like takes that cult over, uses it for her own devices to get Shiana. And
Now, why do they want Shiana?
Because she can control worms.
Why can she control the worms?
Because space magic breeding.
So the little note on why Shiana is important is Leto the second, not Leto the second, the first, or Leto the first. Leto the second turned into a giant worm in God Emperor of Dune. We all remember that. It was a whole big deal.
That happened.
And then he got divided into sand trout, and the sand trout turned into worms. And there's a little bit of Leto's consciousness in each worm. And Shiana is the prophet that Leto foretold would come, who would be able to commune with that little bit of consciousness that's still in the worm. And so the worms obey Shiana, and that is why she is sacred.
Okay. And they find the old Siege Tabor.
Siege Tabor.
Siege
There's a movie. You've watched it. You've watched two of them. They say Siege Tabor every single time.
Well, I want to get you, like how I kept calling him Amos, and eventually I got you to do it.
You did get me to do it.
So they go to Siege Tabor, and they find out that everything that's been happening has already been seen by the God Emperor, and they're still very much on his golden path.
Gotcha.
Got him. And then there's the Reverend Mother Superior Tamerlane.
No, wasn't it Terraza?
Okay. I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I was like, did they revive? Okay, no.
That's a different character.
That's a different character. All right, well, okay. Anyway, Terraza, she's down on the planet Dune, and she's like, I sense a trap. Oh, my top half has been severed from my bottom half. I wish I would have sensed this trap sooner.
No, the thing about a trap, as we all know, is the first step in evading a trap is to get all the way into the trap.
All the way into that trap.
See, the mistake that the fox with its leg caught in a steel trap makes is only being partway into the trap.
Yeah, only one leg is in there. You got to get the whole body clamped.
If your whole body was in the trap, you'd be fine. And then step 2, shit. So Terraza got cut in half.
And then at the very end, the Bashar is like, I can see no ships. No ships, they evade prescience, and they're basically a pocket dimension. But he can see them now with his super, Mentat powers ? And he saves everyone except Terraza, whoopsie. And he's going to do a suicidal last stand. He takes out a bunch of Honored Matres, but also they burn Dune to a crisp at the end. It was kind of that fast. The planet that the first 5 books takes place on just got incinerated by an orbital bombardment. The end. We're moving on. We can't. We got too much weird sex stuff and political discussion to linger on that point. It's gone now. We're done.
Yeah, the book begins. Let's set the stage at 45 minutes into this episode.
Perfect. It's just like Dune.
So, Duncan does not have the Siona genes. That is from God Emperor. The God Emperor bred a subset of humanity to have an immunity to prescience. They cannot be seen by prescient beings. Duncan, not one of those beings. So the book takes place, as you might expect, on the planet Chapterhouse. Duncan is on the planet Chapterhouse, but he needs to stay prisoner in a no ship, which isolates him from the rest of the universe, because if he steps outside, then every guild navigator in the universe would be able to sense where he was.
Are there still guild navigators?
There are still guild navigators.
Why do we
They're
need
working
them?
with the Honored Matres.
Gotcha.
We don't really need them. It's just I imagine, well, the prescience is obviously still valuable. And I believe the guild navigators also own the technology that computer pilot ships. They co-developed that with Ix. There was a spice
Herbert
shortage.
Does spend a lot of time on Ix when Frank Herbert couldn't give two shits about that planet.
Well, and where I think this is a problem is there's explicit reasons why Ix can't succeed. So Ix, if you've forgotten, is a planet of technocrats.
And they make mechs, Ben. Battle mechs.
They exist on the edge of the Butlerian Jihad. So the Butlerian Jihad was a war against artificial intelligence, and after it, there is an almost religious mandate that you should never build thinking machines. You should never build anything other than the most bare bones computational devices. And Ix really skirts that line, and privately probably goes way over it. And obviously building a computational navigation machine that's going to make a lot of decisions and have a lot of thinking power is something that would get you killed. But they develop it with the guild. When the guild runs out of spice, they can't make any more navigators. They eventually figure out how to make spice in the Tleilaxu tanks, which fixes that problem. But so that's how things got muddied. Frank Herbert, and we'll talk about this as we get towards the end of the book, I'm going to pose a theory here that, at the risk of sounding too much like a literature person, there is a theme in all of Dune.
Themes are for third grade book reports, Ben.
Yep, said a man who famously had a career. The director of Deadpool, Wolverine Origins.
Yeah, no, not Deadpool. Come on.
No, Deadpool was in it. But that guy also didn't understand Deadpool's theme. And so he made the greatest X-Men movie of all time.
Time for alcohol.
I would posit that the theme of Dune, all the Dune books, is humanity,
number one,
understanding itself as a species, understanding how we organize ourselves and how we act as societies. Basically, it's understanding us at a communal level. Like I've heard people say, like, an ant colony is really the organism. The individual ants are more like cells. And it is the colony that reproduces. It is the colony that survives. And I think Frank Herbert kind of viewed humanity as the same way. And he saw the problems in that, where it's like, if we're a colony, then if there's only one colony, if there's one society, one empire, we're very susceptible to being wiped out. So that's one problem. And then another problem is a more individual problem of, like, complacency. If we don't keep pushing ourselves, if we don't keep evolving, if we surround ourselves with comfortable technology that does everything for us, if we stop making decisions and if we stop engaging, we stop surviving. And I think
what? I was on my phone that whole time. What was that about? Engaging or something in survival?
I see what you've done there.
Thank you. Yes, I try my best.
It was a clever joke.
Yeah. But what were we talking
puts
about?
away TikTok. Yeah. No, so it would be. I think what he's going towards in Chapterhouse is that the Honored Matres have obviously been running from some threat.
Yeah.
Now, I'll just tell you
What
now,
is
bro.
that threat? Is it Omnius? The most powerful machine master in the universe?
It's possible that he plays a role, but it's pretty clear throughout this book, Duncan Idaho, who has unlocked all the memories of his serial lives as a Gola and has phenomenal intellectual powers and may in fact be a Kwisatz Haderach, he is starting to see this net, like this breaking of reality where sometimes he sees a net surrounding him and two people who look like an elderly couple who are gardeners. And this is a bit of a spoiler, but I want you to keep it in mind as we talk about the book. Towards the end, we find out that these two people are face dancers. That's explicit.
What? They're not Omnius and other machine name in disguise?
They all but say we are face dancers. They talk about Tleilaxu masters and how they don't like torturing them, or how they do like torturing them. They talk about how they or how face dancers would inevitably break free. Like once you give them the ability to absorb memories and personas, they're eventually going to absorb so much information that, like a machine intelligence, they reach a critical point of singularity and they become no longer a slave. They're no longer a slave to the Tleilaxu masters and they turn on them. And so
the picture for the two entities is the American Gothic painting on the Dune fandom wiki.
Yeah. Yeah. So I posit maybe there is a machine intelligence out there that the scattering encountered, but I think what probably happened based on the information we get in this book is that these face dancers reached the singularity point the same way AI reached a singularity point. They turned on everybody and they were just way too powerful because they could assimilate anyone who could fight them. They could assimilate the Tleilaxu masters. They could assimilate the Bene Gesserit, the Honored Matres, etc. And they could just become more powerful. And so the Honored Matres run from them. And it's even hinted that maybe the whole Dune thing, the whole Imperium, could have been like an experiment from the beginning.
Oh. Wow. How interesting would that be? But it's just machines. Sorry. It's Omnius and Erasmus, the machine couple.
But
They
I think
copy your memories with machine nano machines.
I think the layup theme here, because it's Leto all but says this in God Emperor of Dune, when Leto gets Leto uses thinking machines. He uses computers.
What? That's crazy.
And he says the flaw is not in creating thinking machines. The flaw is letting them think for you. Like the problem isn't the machine, the problem is you. And you can get rid of the machine, but you can't get rid of you. I think where he's going with all this, and I think what makes all this make sense,
is if they were machines all along and not face dancers. Did you ever think of that?
If you banned machines, because the face dancers aren't machines, they're people or humanoid. They're biological entities. So we banned thinking machines, but we found a way to sort of create a crutch thing anyway. We created a different technology that wasn't a machine. So we had this religious prescription against machines. And that's his whole fucking point, is that these rules we put on ourselves that are just rules that we don't understand the purpose of, that are only there by tradition, they're conservative in nature. He goes on and on and on about how conservative thinking
will ban abortion and lead to an economic collapse.
How conservative thinking basically calcifies the brain and makes you unable to adapt to changing conditions.
And I told him things that what I do, and he said, no way. And I said, way.
And the Butlerian Jihad, the prescription against thinking machines, is such a conservative relic. It's been there so long, nobody even understands why it's there.
So there you have it. God Emperor would vote for Kamala Harris. That's canon now.
The God Emperor, Frank Herbert was a libertarian, let's be honest. That's where this is all going.
He would vote for Robert F.
Yeah.
But he's going to drop out of the race, I hear.
No shit.
Yeah.
No shit.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. I think he should stay in.
I don't think he does anything one way or the other.
I don't think he's on the ballot in half the states. But
you can write him in.
Yeah, I certainly could. I could write myself in.
I'm going to write for Joe Biden.
I believe in him now.
What a hero. Oh God!
But no, I think that's where this whole thing is going, and so
that's a good thought. That it's having to figure out the flaws in humanity, and those flaws were still there, regardless of whether or not thinking machines are there or not. Or
we just developed another tool.
Or
that we can use.
The big bad are thinking machines because those are bad.
Lasers, pew pew.
Yeah, exactly. We need dogfights in space. Put some lasers on this no ship and let's go.
I don't know. I kind of view that as a layup. Like that. I'll put it to you this way. I don't think we needed a bunch of notes found in a safety deposit box to figure out how this series ends. I think it probably just flows logically. But anyway, so we begin. The Bene Gesserit have Saital, Merbella, the ex-Honored Matre, and Duncan Idaho, all trapped in a no-ship. Saital has bargained with the Bene Gesserit and given them the technology required to create axolotl tanks, which are a nightmare of body horror. And through those axolotl tanks, the Bene Gesserit have created their first Gola, Miles Teg. They're bringing him back.
Yeah, we're bringing him back, baby.
They're bringing him back for two reasons. One,
because he can lead another suicidal charge against the we just keep throwing wave after wave of tags at them, and mission accomplished.
And two, we want to ask him what that super speed was all about.
We really need to know. We couldn't ask him before. He was too busy I'm off to die.
And so they're bringing him back. They haven't restored his memories yet. Still a child, Gola. And they're getting their asses kicked, the Bene Gesserit. They're not doing so good. They're losing planet after planet. And they're really worried that the next planet is going to be Lempadas, which I'm trying very hard not to call Lembus, which is the Elven way
okay,
bread.
I was wondering why I was thinking of some food.
Yeah.
I was thinking of maybe it was that and empanadas.
Empanadas,
I could go for some empanadas. That sounds delicious.
A Lembus empanada, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
It'd be incredibly fortifying, yeah. You could really hike a whole day on one of those, yeah. No, it's So Lampadas is probably the next one, and that is the school planet. That's where they have one of their big archives. That's where they train young Bene Gesserit. So it'd be really bad if that one went down. And that's also where Lucilla is.
I forgot where she was.
Yeah,
she doesn't make it so much.
She's a big deal on Lampadas. So
doing some weird imprinting on some impressionable young girls. Wow.
Nope. Homosexuality is a sin. Frank Herbert doesn't believe in that.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Otherwise, the Honored Matres would just take out whole populations and not just the male population. But they can only sexually enslave men, because if they were to have sex with women, how would that even work?
Yeah.
No one has a penis. It doesn't count.
That's crazy talk. I don't even think that's really sex.
Yeah. Left this out. I mentioned it every episode. Frank Herbert had a gay son who he basically disowned.
I'm putting that in.
I mean, you might as... It's a truth about him. I'm very generous to him most of the time, but that was a big old blind spot. So...
What a douche.
Yeah, so there's a couple of dynamics going on here. Saital wants his own axolotl tanks so that he can make some face dancers, which would be the perfect face dancers that can absorb memories, and he would use that to orchestrate his escape or takeover of the Bene Gesserit.
And he also has all of the cells of all of the major players of the Dune franchise in a small capsule inside of his breast.
Big facts.
Yeah. Like
Duncan,
like Dr. Yue.
Like
for
Dr.
some
Yue.
reason.
All the big ones. Jessica, Dr. Yue.
Not Leto the First, though, right?
I don't know if
dead?
he has Leto the First, but I don't know if they clone Leto the First.
Yeah, he's just dead.
They got Chani in there too, and they've got Leto the Second, but I don't think Ganima.
Wow.
Yeah,
he would have been the easier one to get.
Yeah, I don't think they got Ganima, but yeah, they got Dr. Yue. They didn't get Ganima, but they got Dr. Yue.
Wow. Wow.
And I don't know if they bothered bringing back Alia.
But they do bring back the Baron. I'm pretty sure the Baron's in there for some reason.
They bring back the Baron. Okay, so that's not part. That's the Baron is brought back separately.
Oh.
There's another Tleilaxu survivor with Paulo. Yes. I believe that was in Frank Herbert's notes. And it's still stupid. Yeah, but I believe that one was there. So, so that's what Saital's up to. Merbella is being trained as a Bene Gesserit, and she's initially reluctant to the training. She believes that the Bene Gesserit need to embrace emotion.
Yeah.
Duncan Idaho is trying to hide the fact that he remembers his serial lives, but he's not going to be able to do that forever. He's already engaging in too much of the Mentat stuff. And
yeah, after his coolest life, hate.
And he's afraid that the Bene Gesserit are going to find out he has all these memories, and they're going to think he's a Kwisatz Haderach, and they're going to kill him. Because the last Kwisatz Haderach was Leto II, and he put them in 4,000 years of oppression, which is somehow they were still doing better than they are now.
Yeah, really, if anything, get a Kwisatz Haderach out here right away.
Yeah, like post-haste, we need to get that going. But don't worry, they kind of do. And Odrade is now the Mother Superior after Taraza was killed. She has two assistants, Belanda, who is the archivist.
I kept confusing Belanda and Merbella because of the bell in their name. Merbella is a former Honored Matre, and Belanda
I'm surprised you got this confused, because Merbella is a sexy redhead.
I did not realize that at all. This makes this better. Okay. Yeah. I was wondering why Duncan Idaho was like, Merbella.
Yeah, that's your whole thing.
Yeah. Fuck yeah! You know what? I connect with Duncan Idaho now more.
We have something
before.
in common.
Yeah.
Well, now they already had 3 children, so
yeah, they did.
Step it up.
I've been practicing.
Let me know if you've performed the sex fight.
We'll do that obviously off camera.
Camera, yeah. I mean, Duncan didn't do it off camera. The Bene Gesserit are watching him like a hawk, and he just puts on a show. That's part of his Tleilaxu conditioning. So Adreid has 2 assistants. Belanda, who is fat, as you stated, overweight, which a Bene Gesserit can control their internal body chemistry. So it is a choice for Belanda to be fat. She could not be fat if she wanted to. She either...
Just like it is a choice to be gay, Ben.
Oh, God. But Belanda, she's saying something about that. She just doesn't give a fuck what you think, which is kind of respectable. And then there is Tamerlane, who is old and doesn't care anymore, and that's her whole character.
Nice.
And together, they are the brain trust that is defending the Bene Gesserit.
They are just a solid brain trust. I definitely feel very confident in their decision making whenever they're on screen talking together.
Well, Lympatus just fell.
Whoops.
That's pretty much how it goes in the book.
That is a big whoopsie on our part. I think Adreid is like, well, we don't have enough ships to get him off, so
Well, the problem is they had their best commander there. They had Miles. Well, they had Miles as assistant.
Oh, hey, I remember that guy and forgot about him.
Yeah, he was there, and his whole army got wiped out.
Whoops.
Fortunately, there's one person who got out in a crippled nose ship, limping along to the next gas station. And that's Lucilla.
Oh, God, I don't know how I missed that.
I don't know how you missed that either.
I don't know how I missed that was the same person. See, this is why I'm probably going to put that that recap in episode 2 so that you can all feel my confusion. Because, I read God Emperor last year. I read Children 2 years ago. And I read Heretics, 5 months ago?
Yeah.
I remember those other 2 books more than I remembered Heretics.
Maybe I don't know. Because Lucilla isn't having sex with anyone in this book.
She really needed to, so that I would remember her. She really needed to be like, I need to imprint on a young, impressionable youth.
That's Shiana's job now, and they're younger and more impressionable than ever.
God damn it, you're right.
I know I'm right. That is actually the scene that makes me most question Frank Herbert.
Yeah. So Lucilla,
she's limping along to the next gas station.
Gamu.
The next gas station is on Gamu, the old Giedi Prime, the Harkonnen planet.
Thank God we're here again.
Yep. And it's like Star Wars. There's only it's an endless galaxy, but there's only 2 or 3 planets that matter. And, they go to Giedi Prime, or Gamu, sorry. And that planet is held by the Honored Matres. But fortunately, Lucilla finds an unexpected ally.
Yeah. Explain this one to me, Ben.
Space Jews.
Why? So we are tens of thousands of years since the end of Earth. And you've taken all of the world's religions and you put them in a blender, kind of, or more like a food processor. You chop them up.
There's Zen Sufi, whatever mystical,
the Orange Catholic Bible, whatever. But Judaism remains completely untouched from 10,000 years of change in space travel.
So the logic here is that one of the best kept secrets in the universe is that shortly after one of the space wars, where I think the Jewish people were again genocided or unfairly targeted. They decided, you know what, we're out, and they took off, and they spread out. They had their own diaspora.
Yes, they just picked up their stakes and they're like, "We are out. Goodbye," and they left, and that was it.
Yeah, and they probably have their own secret planets. They also adopted a deep cover protocol where they basically exist incognito as a secret society in planets all around the galaxy. There's secret space Jewish communities all throughout, and one of them's on Giedi Prime. Or Gamu. Sorry, I get confused.
Yeah, it's not that the language evolved, so we changed its name.
A reader, Nate, lives 1,000 lives, whereas a non-reader only lives one. And so my past
I'm
lives,
a gamer, not because I have no life, but because I choose to have many.
That's exactly what I am. I'm a gamer.
I'm a gamer.
Yep. And she runs into this guy, and the Bene Gesserit are old friends and allies with the Jewish diaspora. They do favors for each other from time to time. The Bene Gesserit keep their secrets, and the Jewish people do the same. And the Jewish people have a similar Bene Gesserit like awareness of sort of their place in the universe. They're not really
Is that
seeking.
true, James?
Oh God,
is that true? You can tell me.
How many spaceships do you have, James?
You don't have to say anything. Just hold up a number with your fingers, and I'll know what you're saying.
So, yeah. So she runs into one of these communities, and she seeks asylum there. And basically, she's trying to get back off the planet. And she runs into this rabbi, and the rabbi basically tells her,
No, keep going. I'm saying the scene.
Oh, okay. Fiddler on the Roof, Act 1, Scene 2. No. So she runs into the rabbi, and the rabbi tells her, okay, I got good news. I got bad news. Bad news first. I can't get you off this planet alive. You're definitely going to die here. And she's like, okay, hard to imagine what the good news might be. It's like, the good news is we have our own secret Reverend Mother, like the Fremen did, and she can absorb your memories. And Lucilla at this point is carrying the memories of the entire Lampadas community.
Empanada filling, yeah.
Yeah.
She's like a soft, warm bread that's encompassing like meat.
I don't.
And veg
Please
fillings.
Stop describing her as soft. I've seen enough of what this woman can do. So,
oh God.
Like in so many ways, she's like an empanada. So, yeah. So he's like, you could give Rebecca here your memories, and we could get Rebecca off the planet, and then you can die violently. How's that sound?
You drive a hard bargain, Mr. Rabbi. Father Rabbi? I don't... James, help me out here.
You can just say Rabbi.
You drive a hard bargain, Comrade Rabbi.
God damn it.
I accept your bargain of being betrayed in exchange for giving all of my memories to this random woman I just met. Let's do this.
So she does that. Now there's a lot of cutting back and forth. I don't know like how far you want to go or where you want to draw lines.
Yeah, we should draw a line soon because we front loaded this episode, and how are we going to get them to come back?
So yeah, how are we gonna get them to come back? Okay, so O'Drade finds out that Duncan's a mentat. She's been watching the cameras. He hasn't been particularly good at hiding it.
Yeah, you would like
goes,
ask him a question, and he would like start asking you a bunch of questions to get data, and then he would
it's
clearly run a
literally
computation on it.
it's literally like Marbella's arguing with him, and his eyes roll back in his head, and he's like, processing. I hope they didn't notice. But they did notice. And so Marbella asks him a bunch of questions, and she's like, what do you think we should do about stuff?
Marbella's the one who did the sex fighting with Duncan.
Are you serious?
I thought that person died, honestly.
Who the hell did you think she was?
I don't know. I was like, oh, a new character in between books. All right, whatever.
Oh my god.
A lot of this book is starting to make more sense now.
So you told me before we started recording, despite the fact that you literally just read the book, you're like, Ben, I'm going to need you to do a lot of the summary for this one because for some reason I just cannot remember what happened. And it's because you have no idea how any of these people relate to each other. I'm sitting here telling them, I'm front loading this saying like, oh, this isn't going to make any sense to you if you don't watch the other ones. Dude.
I completely forgot. I told you, I was struggling.
Who did you think? Who did you think the Honored Matre was that they captured? The Honored Matre that Duncan is sexually bonded to, which Marbella is described as numerous times.
Well, you know,
a new character created off screen between books, totally unrelated to the Honored Matre he sex fought.
I thought that Honored Matre died after sex fighting. His
thought he sexed her to death.
So great. Oh god. Duncan Idaho, by the way, is that guy from the Olympics whose dick hit the pole as he jumped over and
and Belanda is that Australian breakdancer.
Oh my god.
Bro.
All right. Well, stuff is starting to make more sense now, Ben.
I'm glad I could help you with that. We're sitting here talking about like what could you do if you had like the full ancestral memory of everyone who contributed to your DNA, and I'm sitting here wondering what Nate might be capable of if he had the full memory of last fucking week.
I don't know why I can't remember heretics, Ben. It's just a big blank in my mind.
It's just a bunch of Lucilla getting nailed.
Yeah, it really is. Oh god. Okay. All right. Anyway, back to the Duncan's a mentat, Ben.
Duncan's a mentat. Okay. We've crossed that border. Let's check in with Shiana. That's the other important character. So Shiana.
I remember Shiana. Okay.
Thank God. Okay, that's one. That's literally one. Literally, you remembered Shiana and Duncan Idaho.
I remember O'Drade.
Kind of.
She was on Dune, and then she was like, I'm the Honored Matre.
I don't think
I'm
you fully...
the Reverend Mother Superior now.
I don't think you fully know the difference between Terraza and O'Drade.
I know the difference between Terraza and O'Drade, but I thought that they had, for some reason, cloned Terraza, and she was now a lowly assistant. And I was like, that's a choice.
Oh my god.
Oh.
They cloned her. and
They
made her an
a
elderly
janitor.
woman.
Yeah. That's
Like
how she would have wanted to be remembered.
Well, like they clone Tag. They clone Tag, right? And he's aging in real time, and like that's a problem because they don't have a lot of time. And but somehow they cloned Terraza, and
we had
also
a goal
she aged
of
faster.
Terraza that we hid her away.
They specifically said Tag was the first Gola.
She aged alongside her real life clone, and then when she died, they brought her Gola, who had already aged, out of the wine cellar where they put people to age till they're fine wine, and they're like, "You're a janitor now."
I think we've lost all credibility as like Dune podcasters.
I thought we lost all credibility the first time when I said the first book fucking sucked. And you need to cut the entire first part out.
Oh God. You remember more about that dinner they had.
Yeah, they had that water merchant who never came up again, and
you remember more about that scene than anything from Heretics of Dune.
I remember the weird sex fight, but not who was involved, apparently.
You remember the weird sex fight, but not who was involved or what happened in it. Oh my God, dude.
Oh. Anyway, Shiana.
Shiana, yeah.
She's making worms.
So
what's that all about?
They managed to smuggle one sandworm off Dune, and they got it to Chapterhouse, where it turned into its sand trout stage, and the sand trout are slowly turning the whole planet into a desert. And they're leaving a bunch of spice around, and the spice should catalyze the sand trout into the worm vector. And then once that happens, they will have a reliable source of spice, which is one of the Sisterhood's biggest problem right now.
Yeah.
They're having a hard... So all the Reverend Mothers are A, addicted to spice. If they don't have it, they will go into a withdrawal that will kill them. And B, they need spice to create new Reverend Mothers, which they speculate could be what happened to the Honored Matres. For whatever genius reason, they sent a bunch of Reverend Mothers out into the scattering with no way to get more spice, and maybe they came back as psychopathic sex ninjas.
Well, they clearly replaced it with something to make their eyes orange.
Yeah, the bad spice. The naughty spice.
Yeah, Old Spice.
Old Spice. No, Old Spice is what we want.
Ah, this is new spice.
This is new spice.
This is baby spice.
Oh. So Shiana's hanging out because she has the special connection to the Leto consciousness in the worms. They send her out to see if she might be the first person to notice. Also, maybe they just kind of want her away because Shiana's kind of a problem. She's kind of not like... She's a Reverend Mother. She's past the spice agony and all that. But she's kind of horny.
Fucking a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just non-stop and constantly. And I hope that doesn't get weird or anything.
Yeah, so to combat the Honored Matres, the Bene Gesserit have been training a bunch of males in the sex-fighting arts of Duncan Idaho. I promise this is actually less weird than the last book. And Shiana has somehow worked it out in her job description that she's like got to test them before they go out.
Yeah, I have to test them. It's not sexual harassment. It's my job description.
Now, you know how Shiana, like they also describe what Duncan Idaho did and what the Honored Matres do as basically a sexual experience so good it is literally addictive.
Yeah.
And so they
That's
kind
what I
of
call my Friday night.
Okay.
This is for the super fan. Only 3 people are listening to this one, so
was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I've played many an online game with you on a Friday night, and I shudder to think what was happening because you never turned your webcam on. I think now we've gotten to the bottom of this.
That's why they call me a sex ninja. I'm very silent.
They don't even know I'm there. Oh gosh. Okay. So Shiana, she's I don't quite know what he's trying to get at with Shiana having all this sex.
I know. It's because Frank Herbert is a little lonely. You know what I'm saying?
No, he's
Frank
stooping his editor.
Well, he needs to do it more often then, because he's got some fantasies, you know?
So I think what they're trying to say, though, is that Shiana basically is a reverend mother with an addiction.
She's a rhino. Reverend in name only.
Kind of. And she's kind of thinking about rebelling against the order. And she has...
Yeah, she's going to endorse Kamala Harris.
Kind of. She's going to endorse Duncan Idaho. She's going to help him escape. Duncan taught her a secret, presumably a Atreides sign language, and they've been communicating about how they might escape. She wants to get away from the Sisterhood. And I don't know where Marbella factors in that. Shiana clearly wants Duncan, and I think the reason she's getting with these guys, I think another thing here is that they're trained by Duncan, and so there's something weird going on there in her psyche, but she's a little weird. She's a wild card. She's not quite on board.
2 girls, 1 Duncan. Am I right?
Well, and also 2 girls, 1 sisterhood, because Shiana and Marbella are, spoilers, going to become the 2 candidates to take over the Sisterhood should Odrade die, which most certainly will.
What a weird thing to be like, hey, you're like the youngest members of our Sisterhood, but how would you like to be president?
The other memories kind of make that irrelevant.
Yeah. Then why even have a leader? Ben.
It's like a pirate captain. Somebody's got to make decisions in times of conflict. Checkmate.
Damn.
Yeah. We could wrap there if you want. I mean, that kind of sets the stage. Those are all the main characters. There's also, I guess, on the negative side, there's
the Spider Queen.
Great Honored Matre. Spider Queen.
Don't call her Dama, though, unless you're fucking her. Spoilers, she may be fucking a cat person.
She's definitely doing that.
Yeah. Because she doesn't deny it when directly asked.
Which is something you would deny.
It's really weird. Yeah, you would think that you'd be like, no, absolutely not.
I've referenced this before, but it's like that time Kendrick Lamar called Drake a pedophile and also insinuated that Drake had a secret daughter. And Drake was like, I definitely don't have a secret daughter.
And what about the other thing, Drake? Drake, he's walking away. Oh
dear. So yeah, but the Honored Matres are kind of like, to set up the conflict for the book. The Honored Matres, they're winning. But something obviously chased them here from the scattering. And the problem with the Honored Matres is they're very much like a cancer in the human organism. They're growing quickly and they're killing healthy cells. Yeah. But when they finally take all the resources and when they finally take all the planets, the organism dies and the cancer dies with it. So
did the enemy follow them here, Ben?
Well, and what does the enemy want?
The enemy clearly wants beep, boop, I am a robot.
That's why I created these cat people.
Yes.
Even though the handlers are also specifically face dancers.
Wow. Are you trying to tell me there's a connection there? That the handlers...
The face dancers are way more fucking involved.
Even though there are no more face dancers. They've all been wiped out by the Honored Matres.
I'm telling you, every line in Hunters of Dune that references Dr. Yue made my blood boil.
Because we haven't talked about Dr. Yue in probably 5 books?
No one ever cared about Dr. Yue. He wasn't even a particularly good doctor. He was just some guy. Like, all the Atreides people were like the legendary people. Like Thufir Hawat, the legendary Mentat. Duncan Idaho, the legendary swordsmaster. Gurney Halleck, the legendary swordsmaster. We had 2 of those.
And Balisette player.
And Balisette player. He also played a sick Balisette.
There's a reason he did not come back as a Gola. Fucking sick of that Balisette. Leto tried it once, immediately killed him.
I think I mentioned this in our episodes on Hunters of Dune, but like, did you ever see Muppet Babies?
Yeah.
It was literally like that.
Yeah. And I made a joke that Baby Paul is going to date Baby Chani, and
like Baby Chani follows him around, yeah.
I was joking, but that's real.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's real. So, our patrons.
The only people who listen to this episode.
And probably not even all of them. But the ones who are most likely to listen are our Yacht Plan tier patrons. And they are Jamie, the Gravy Man, of the If You Want the Gravy movie blog. He doesn't just review movies, but I don't like the other things he reviews. I feel like maybe he's not in his lane.
Yeah. Yeah. He's stepping on some toes, you know?
Stepping on some toes. Yeah. Stepping on some toes. John Bierce, actual author of The Mage Errant, The Rack, and an upcoming new project. We have Spooky Shy with a Y over on TikTok. Then we have Isekai Sensei Sama of the That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster podcast. It is thanks to the support of these 4 that we got to cover Hellhole. There are others to blame for that too, but like, these are the ones we mentioned by name. The most blame resides with them, I should say. Fun. This is fun. I'm having fun. Should be the September of our discontent this year. The book is good. This is the problem. Is like, I like Chapterhouse.
I do like Chapterhouse more than Heretics.
And the worst thing is it's good. I mean, like that, it's the best thing and the worst thing. It's like, oh, he's back in. This is the Empire Strikes Back of this series.
And it
perfect.
Was.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, oh, there's no...
Yeah.
It's worse than that. It's worse than there's no next book. There's a shit tier book that masquerades as canon.
Yeah, it's...
And every time you talk about it, you have to fight with some rando who does not understand even the basic concept of Dune, talking about how actually it's not that bad. It's that bad.
No, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad and you're bad.
I don't know if I'll say that they're bad, but...
No. I will. I'll do it for you. I got your back.
If you'll fall on that sword,
does.
If you'll fall on that sword for me, I'm not going to insult the listener, but if you will...
Deal.
Okay. Words about books out.
Oh.
I assume.
No, it's bad and they're bad.
C. Jews in space.